Welcome back to another heart to heart conversation. And if you're new here, thank you for tuning in and listening to Heart Conversations. I am so grateful you're here. And today, I mean, every heart to heart conversation is special, but today is super special because my friend Spencer is here. And it's fun because I feel like I'm still getting to know you, Spencer. And so this is like diving deeper into your story and maybe even me discovering things that I didn't know about you.
It's probable. It's probable. We'll see where it goes.
Amazing. Okay, so sometimes at the beginning of podcasts they list a bio, but I like to do it differently. And I like to share kind of some words or things that pop into my mind when I think of you, Spencer. So bear with me, and then you can fill in the gaps and add in once I'm done. All right. When I think of Spencer, first and foremost, I think of squirrels because Spencer loves squirrels. So there's that. Spencer is an amazing leader and is so good at embodying, tapping into your intuition and your creativity and your heart. And so when I think of you, Spencer, that's what I think of is leadership, heart, like all things heart, and I think creativity slash intuition because those go hand in hand. So how did
Wow.
I do? What else would you add to your bio?
I mean, I feel like if this is where we're starting, then I feel so honored and like seen and respected. And it's just, wow, what a special reflection to get. You did great.
Thanks, squirrels and all. I made sure to include that.
Yeah, that's just such a funny thing that if I had planned this life, yeah, I definitely would have included that. No, I probably did plan this and I definitely included that. So
Hmm. So talk to us about intuition because I am still learning about intuition every day. And um, I do kind of feel like you've devoted your life's work to this. And so maybe you have some expertise to share with us.
well, I feel like I'm in the same boat. I feel like I'm still learning new stuff every day as well. So yeah, I'm gonna just say what's there and let it flow. But maybe that's even the best place to start with intuition. Is intuition isn't something that like you have any ability, or why would you even want to try and control it? And that's, I think, the thing that's been on my mind recently about this is like, as I've been interested in this in so long, it's as I continue to develop how do I share this with people, it's like, well, like, where do I even start and what do I say? And all I can really say is what's there, because this intuition is something that is larger than any one of us. So to try and like funnel it into something is like it's sort of missing the point. So I'm like I'm still trying to wrap my mind around where to start with these things as well. But I think yeah, I just think it's like, that's the starting place. Is it's like intuition is just, it is bigger than any of us, and I don't think I'll be able to understand it in this life.
Yeah, I'm like, if you're listening, feel free to Google intuition, but it's, I don't even think that does it justice. It's so much a feeling and something that you have to experience yourself. And even then, Spencer, you could talk about, oh, this was my intuition. Wow, there's a frog in my throat. This was my intuition and I felt it this way. And you could try and teach it to someone else, but their intuition is going to come across a totally different way, right?
Yeah, that is one of the things that had me really pause, as I knew that I wanted to share this with people, was that I really needed a way to like universalize it a bit, because everyone has all these different ways. And for people that have been involved in this for a little while, it gets into some pretty wild places like psychic gifts and like, spirituality, and it just goes off the deep end really, really fast.
Mm.
So, as far as then people trying to, like find a way to connect with it, I think getting into the body is first and foremost, like you pointed at feeling. And yeah, and I feel like that's, part of what's so exciting about intuition, because we spend so much of our time in our heads and in these mental realms, and we go through school where it's all about like, kind of doing what you have been told to do, and like following more cerebral ways of doing things. And intuition just doesn't play like that. You got to get into the body and feel things, and that's where the truth and heart of the matter really lies.
Ooh, that's so good, especially as someone just graduating from college and having spent the majority of my life in school in the education system. I realized how disconnected I truly am from my body. And I'm sure I have friends listening to this who feel similarly. And so when you say getting into the body, as an outsider looking in, it's like, hello, I'm in my body. I'm a human being. So what do you mean? What are ways to like tap into the body and really drop from the head to the heart?
Mm. Well, yeah, I think like, wow, I'm having like 15,000 ideas all at the same time. Breathing. I think breathing is a really great place to start. And it's, again, like to that same point you just made of like, wait, get into the body. Like I'm in my body, but, you know, like get into the breath, breathe. It's like, yeah, I'm breathing all the time. But how often are we being with our breath where that's the only place that we're being? And that's the only thing that's got our attention.
Such a good point. Yeah. Being still, taking that time to pause and listen and connect. And I can even tell right now, as we're recording this podcast, even you saying that, the energy totally shifted.
Yeah, I just felt that too. Just like now I'm way more in tune with, there's this vitality and aliveness and buzz and magic and love in the moment that's like, whoa, where was that a minute ago? It was right here. I just wasn't tuned into it.
Yeah. Oh, so good. And I'll be the first to say this is not easy. It takes conscious effort and it's intentionality. I actually was telling a friend yesterday, it was beautiful. I was sitting at the beach watching the moon rise. And I had my headphones in and I was listening to a training on Facebook, which, no shame. I mean, I'm giving myself grace and compassion, but it felt kind of icky looking back. I'm like, here I was enjoying nature, being present with the moon rising, but yet I wasn't fully tapped in. I was kind of blocking it out and trying to do two things at once.
I love what you said about the space and grace, because I think that that's just so important. And to kind of like dance in this little moment of because spirituality, I think so often, we've maybe hit that point of like, if you're listening to this and you've heard some like spiritual stuff before, you're like, oh, here we go again about like breathe, be in the moment. Like, yeah, I know, like listen to your heart. Okay, I've heard it before. But you know I heard this thing recently that just made me chuckle, and also gave me a little space and grace as well, about like doing one thing at a time, which is another one of those things. And it was like, you can be present eating your breakfast, just eating your breakfast. You can be present just looking at the moon, or you can also be present and in the moment, looking at the moon and listening to your podcast or whatever it is that you're listening to. Like, it's just the choice of like, this is what's going to get my attention, rather than my attention is just sort of a free for all, and whatever happens to be there can get it.
Ooh, so that's like bringing intentionality to the intentionality. There's like a whole other layer there. Like,
So meta.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa, this is getting deep, but I love this. But the key, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like the key is, it's funny because I'm like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like the key is not making yourself wrong.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely not making yourself wrong. But like also to kind of hone it in on intuition, it's like just being with what's there, because there's so much freedom in the moment of like, because intuition is an aspect of consciousness, and contuition, what am I just saying?
Ooh, you just made a new word.
Yeah, there might be something there. Yeah, the consciousness of life is, it's alive in the moment with intuition, and that's what's available there is, like whatever moment that you decide to tune in and be with your breath, be with the moon, be with just the podcast you're on, like all these things are part of life, like Facebook, for better or worse, it's also part of life. All these things are here, and they're all manifestations of like creative life, intuition, space, and it's like, so like all of those things, it's like whatever you want to put your attention on, it's all there in the moment for you, and it's just another experience to have.
Mm. Yeah, and I think you point to something that's important to talk about, which is there are so many things pulling at our attention and noise out there, which, some of it is distraction, some of it is genuinely pure and good, but that's where the intuition comes into play. It's like, yeah, which one are you going to choose? I think
Mhm.
we have we have the free will, to choose. All right, will it be Facebook and the scroll hole? And maybe it doesn't even have to be a negative thing. I feel like my tone kind of implied that it was negative. Maybe you're gonna approach Facebook and it'll be this amazing tool that you're gonna use to spread love and light and positivity to the world in when we're going through a somewhat dark time. And I'm curious from your life, if you could share, if you're open to sharing examples of when you followed your intuition and how that felt.
Yeah. So I follow my intuition, that's my lifestyle. It's just what I do. So, um, I'll just like this. I mean, I literally followed my intuition in this conversation. Um, and, for me to bring it into the moment a little bit, like what that looks like and what that feels like is, you can tune in to the body, tune into the breath, tune into just like, like being with yourself. And so when you invited me on this podcast, I was just like, well, I'm gonna like feel into like, what does it feel like in the body? Does this feel like a resounding yes, or does this feel like, maybe I don't know, or does this feel like a resounding no? And everything that I am, when you asked me to do this, said yes, 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 yes. I absolutely want to be there. And so yeah, that's like, that feeling of like sitting with something for a minute and like, what does it actually feel like to begin to allow myself to live into the reality where I'm going to do this? And how does my body, how does my somatic feeling self react to that? Do I expand and and grow and feel a sense of lightness and wonder, or do I contract and feel like I'm now, like my mind is starting to get activated and take over, or I'm getting confused and feeling a sense of obligation? And for me, that's the kind of the fundamental tipping point of like, well, where is intuition leading me or not?
Mhm. Yeah, I love that you brought up expansiveness versus contraction because yeah, for me, I think and of course, like I said, I'm still on the journey and like, is this my intuition or is this my ego? But I think when I've known through and through that it was a yes and that my intuition was telling me, everything inside of my body was yes, 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 this is a go, green light, is when it felt expansive and when it was just in total flow. I think of a river and it's like you were going with the flow of the river as opposed to trying to go upstream and the water's going against you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think then that brings up maybe another time that was a lot harder to follow my intuition, which was yeah, and this I feel like this is the moment to talk about this. But like definitely a personal like soft spot for me. And so I I left a relationship a number of years ago, and I was really trying to make that relationship work. And I was grappling with that same thing of like, what's my intuition? What's my ego? And really, and that's something that I still, like pause with of like, wait a second, got to be discerning about this, and as I've been doing this for many, many years, I still sit with that and go, wait a second, I have my ways of checking. But in that, that point where the relationship was coming to an end, I was like really holding on. And that was the thing that we both discovered together was like, oh, there's a river of our lives. And like some point ago, we decided that instead of following the flow of our rivers, which were going apart, we're going to like dig a channel between where the rivers were flowing. And yeah, the water does what water does, so it will just keep following you. But it was really hard to try and dig a channel instead of just floating with the river.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I love that we're continuing with this river analogy. And thank you, Spencer, for sharing that. I recognize that, yeah, it's vulnerable and maybe still a soft spot for you. And I just so appreciate you opening your heart in that way and being willing to share that with folks because heck, I wish more people would talk about that I don't even know if there's a whole term to describe it succinctly, but essentially how relationships aren't all rainbows and butterflies. And I think what's tricky about it is there is no right or wrong way. I know recently, I've reached out to other folks for relationship advice, and it's like they all have their opinions, but I know in the end that it's on me. That this isn't their love life. Sure, they can give me their advice and yeah, they might have the best intentions, but um ultimately I need to sit with myself and tune inward. And sometimes that's exactly what I'm avoiding because I don't want to hear what myself has to say. It's tricky.
That's literally the story of my life, Marissa.
Wait, the whole like reaching out to other people for advice and then
Oh, well, yes, but it's like how do you end up in a path where you are like where you're dedicated and focused to intuition? You end up on that path by not listening. You know what I'm saying?
ooh, so you felt the opposite, what you didn't want to feel. And so because of that, you pivoted and now you're like, all right, we're dedicating our life to following our intuition.
Well, okay, so I'm gonna intentionally be a little bit like I'm gonna intentionally deepen this channel that we're in a little bit. So we'd spoken a little bit earlier about how intuition is this living intelligence, or it's an aspect of living intelligence. And then and so by tuning into intuition, we get this larger, deeper sense of self. And so the path that I have been on that led me to the point to even discover like, oh, this is why I'm here. This is what I'm for in this experience that I'm sharing with you all is um, a lifetime of not listening to that, and like having that be just my default. And growing up, for whatever reason, it's not like my parents didn't try and tell me to like listen to myself. And like one of my parents would always say like, you need to follow your conscience, which is another way of saying follow your intuition. But for some reason, like I would hear that and I'd be like, okay, that sounds dumb. Like I want to do what I want to do, and like I'm gonna find a way to not do that because that sounds not cool.
Well, and my parent is telling me this, and so I'm going to be defiant and be a rebel and no.
Yeah, usually that stops like teenage years. Yeah, that didn't stop at that point for me. That went into like, like mid 20s, like 30s, just still defying something, but it's that, it's like that defiance of like allowing myself to be on a larger sense of um like who and what I am, life is, and but that's the journey. It's like whatever you're here for, whatever your life is calling you into, which is another aspect of intuitive creative living, is like you're not going to want to do it. That's part of the journey, is you're going to be like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. But that's what makes you like relatable, credible, and somebody who can actually be there with an open heart with others, is because you've walked that path and you've been through all the struggles of all the things that make it, like all the reasons not to do it, and then you overcame that. And like that's why people will want to spend time with you with whatever your thing is because you know what it's like to have it suck and not be easy, and you still walked the path anyways, and here you are. Like that's a lot more encouraging of others to open their hearts and like really be who they are, to like know that it's okay to suck at stuff and to resist and not want to do it, and that you're still gonna be able to show up and do something great no matter where you're at on the like spectrum of whether you're 15 years old or 55 years old. It doesn't matter.
That is beautiful. And I'm going to dive deeper and ask follow-up questions about, so what were some of the obstacles that you came across on your journey and the resistance that showed up for you?
Well, for some reason it was always really hard for me to just like tell the truth. That was a really, and that's also, yeah, that's like kind of a soft spot too, but it was just like, it was a hard thing for me growing up to like, like my parents would like have these moments where they were just trying to figure out what the F happened when they weren't there. And then for some reason, me and my sister were uh, like, looking at each other like, well, crap, like we've kind of got ourselves into a corner here. We're definitely in a pickle. Somebody's going to get in trouble. And then I was the younger one. So my sister is like, always had the upper hand in that regard. But so for whatever reason, I got hung up on this thing of telling the truth. And so I got really good at like telling people what I thought they wanted to hear, rather than telling, just speaking the effortless truth that's just right there.
Hmm.
So that became a huge obstacle for me in like really connecting with life and intuition, is because fundamental to intuition is it's just truth.
Yeah. And like we were speaking to earlier, you feel it in your body if if you don't speak the truth. You have a conscience. Like you know.
That's right. You do know, but you also become numb to it. And
Mm,
that's where I found myself, was that I got so detached from just speaking the truth that because I was so open in my mind of like thinking about, well, what do I need to say to get what I want, that it I wasn't I wasn't in my body and feeling. I wasn't connected to a sense of feeling with what I was saying and what I was creating with my living word.
mm, yeah. And I mean, so much love to your younger self, right? It's like you were doing the best. I mean, in a sense, it was a safety mechanism of, all right, as humans, we want to do whatever it takes to be loved, to be accepted, to belong. And for you, that showed up in maybe bending the truth or whatever that looked like. And it's beautiful because it's led you to this moment right here, right now, today, and this intuition and creation. And um yeah, I even think about the work that you do on the body and massage. Like, wow.
Um, I'm interested where what you were just thinking about that, because I was like, oh, I didn't like you kind of when you said massage, I was like, oh yeah, I do that too, and we we'd kind of gotten in this like space, and I'm just like, I was curious what got you thinking about that, to
Hmm.
like kind of bring it into this moment where we were talking about truth.
Hmm. Well, thank you for that question. I think, wow, now I'm like, what? I was just speaking from the heart. What did lead me there? I think that the body doesn't lie. And
Mm,
so for you to work so intimately with people in that way and be literally touching their body. I mean, my mom's she was a massage therapist, and she talked about how she could sense and feel the trauma and have people breathe through that. And like, what an honor and a privilege and a gift that you have. And it's like, power to you, because it's tough to have that, especially if you're an empath and it affects you. um I don't know, I brought it up and here we are. And yeah, I mean, I just shared that. What's there for you? What's coming up?
yeah, it's funny. It was like because I like asked that question in a way that was like, anyways, space and grace. Yeah, so like what's there is um that like yeah, I guess like you know, as a sensitive person, you'd pointed to this thing about like about just like what it is to be in the body and like that sense of bending the truth and I think like just like what's there for me is that I've been discovering as I've been just peeling back layers of myself to like get at this core of like what am I here to share and what's this really for? Why am I even having this experience of this this living truth that has been so profound in my life and it's like that experience that I had as a young person, it made me like kind of like hunger for this deeper truth and hunger for this like embodied sense of self. And so like before I was really even, I mean, it was at the same time, but I didn't connect the dots at the time. I was living in China and I had this amazing job, and there was like I discovered once I got to China that there's like so much good body work in that country. It's just like a part of life. It's just a part of like culture in China. And so it was, that was part of what opened the door for all of this was just like I hadn't gotten massage ever until I went to China and then got so much good body work and it like brought me into the body. And
Mm.
like when I was in a space of my life where I had just, like where I had been disconnected from that, like getting so much body work brought me back into my body. And that started awakening me to this sense of like, oh, there is a truth that lives inside of me that has a life. And like, this is like, this is something really profound and special opening up.
Hmm. And so it was that experience in China, would you say, that led you to inspired you really to take that on as your own work and just the profound difference it made in your life?
Yeah, definitely. Again, it was like I never would have thought that at the time because I was in a business job and I was like managing like a lot of flow of business through the factory that I worked at. And so it was like in my mind at the time that would be like a step down,
Hmm.
in a career progression. But what I was like, you know, but that was again that mental mode that I was in, of just like, well, you know, like you just do this and then you do this and then you do this and that's how you move forward in life and blah 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 blah. And you know, but what I got through the body work was this sense of depth and this sense of like something that I don't have to be on a kind of endless revolving ladder. Like, to draw a metaphor, you were talking about you used some term that I'd never heard before for like being on the scroll feed.
Oh, scroll hole. Yeah.
The scroll hole, yeah, that was like, oh, that's a good one. But like, you know, it's like that, but that's, you know, it as a thing you can feel, it's that same experience of like being on a conveyor belt, on a career conveyor belt, where you're just like trying to get to the next rung of the ladder, or you're just trying to, you know, like get somewhere, but where are you actually going?
Mm.
And you know, and that's that same, you know, to me, that felt the same as being disconnected from my body, being disconnected from truth, and being disconnected from intuition. It was that phenomenon that had me in that place of just being in the scroll hold of career.
Mm.
And
Yeah. Was there
and
more
so it
there?
was that body work that started to like it was that was that first crack in the ice that was breaking the scroll hold of career.
Wow. And I find it so interesting too how you said, yeah, it could look like a step down. And so to me, the way I interpreted that is, oh, maybe that was some resistance showing up of, oh, this could be my life's work. But to others, it could look like I'm throwing my life away. And what are you doing? You have all this opportunity and potential. And why do you want to do that, Spencer? Just because it made a big difference in your life doesn't mean you need to do it.
Wow. Yes, you just channeled the voices of all of the external resistance that I got when I told people that's what I was doing. Yeah, exactly.
Hmm. Did they actually say that, or was that voices in your mind of you assuming what they were thinking?
Both.
Ah. Hmm.
Funny how the people in your life will actually tell you the things that you think that they're going to think and say. And then that's sort of that like meta loop of like, did they tell you that because you were thinking it? Or did you think that because that's what they were going to say? And then to just be totally like real, there's also times where like you're just like projecting things, and you know, you're not necessarily that in tune with like those like pivotal moments of like stepping deeper onto the path, and you know, you're just thinking shit.
Pretty much, yeah. You're just crazy. But no, I
That's
think
not what I meant. I mean, we're all nuts here.
I mean, yeah, I definitely crazy hooligan over here. Weird. And not like I'm willing to own that. But I think, yeah, so often people in our life, they are a mirror. And it is, I think sometimes, yeah, my greatest fears, it's like they might come true. And that's all part of, like you spoke to earlier, the journey and the resistance and the human experience. Heck, it's kind of like, I'm not a gamer, but if it were, it's kind of like a video game in the sense that there's different levels, right? And you can't just walk into the castle and get the gold. No, you have to fight the dragon or whatever. And, like that, it shows other people what's possible. But first and foremost, I think it's for you. It's your own healing journey. And then you get to, it's literally a hero's journey, because then you get to go back to your community, to your people, and show them the way, guide them through the walk that you took.
I love that you just brought us to that hero's journey place. That's one of the places that always shows up in my coaching. Is it's one of the first and most fundamental questions once we really deepen this space, when somebody is wanting to go on a longer journey with me, is like, well, where are you even at in the journey right now? And I pull up the wheel of the hero's journey and, you know, like kind of hit the milestones, and it's really profound and pivotal for people to actually get that sense of where you're at. But yeah, I'm like, I was like, wow, I just kind of squirrel brained there. But but my point is that, like, I think, like, as you're navigating, you know, through life and intuition and how does this all come alive on the journey, it's like, um you know, those moments where life really starts speaking to you, those that's where it's like it gets really really amazing. And you know, like, I think along my journey of navigating truth and like finding my way, like, through all that, at first those moments felt really confronting, you know, of like, whoa, this feel, you know, because it's like, you know, when you feel the power of life, it, especially in the culture that we live in where we don't really have a lot of context for that, of you know, these mental realms that we get in as young people trying to just, you know, get through school and whatnot. um you know, to actually like feel something that powerful as like what comes with intuition and life, it's like, you know, that can be really confronting. And I just, you know, want to like speak to how that confrontation is actually the thing in your life that like you want to lean into, because that's like, you know, I think a hallmark of our time is this like feeling out of control with the, like, the scroll hold of all these different ways where we feel like we're just sort of on a track, or we're just, you know, like in these automatic places. And the confrontation that you feel that puts a that 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 those are the things that pull you out of those holds, is when you actually feel that confrontation and you give it the space and you get curious about like, whoa, what is this that I'm feeling right now. And
Mm.
like you'd said earlier, it's like sometimes, you know, it can be really uncomfortable and hard when you first start tuning into this. But like, you know, if you trust those moments where the confrontation shows up and you're like, whoa, like what am I even doing right now, that feeling, you know, is a portal into something like really really lovely.
Mm. So we're talking in kind of vague terms. I'd love
Oh, did I get
to,
vague?
yeah, I'm like, huh,
Sorry.
confrontation. Hmm.
Hmm.
It's all like, I totally am on board and I get it. I also want to give our listeners just some examples so that they can maybe apply it to their life or think of, oh, maybe I have encountered this, just didn't know that I did.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Well, yeah, so like, yeah, so like I think a good example of that would be, um you know, when, you know, like, to be in the body, it's like, let's say you're in a relationship and your partner is like, why did you just say that to me, you know, and you start to feel like, you know, like really uncomfortable and you want to be defensive. And, you know, then you might take a little pause and be like, wait, before I'm about to defend myself right here and start a fight, like, what am I feeling in my body?
Hmm.
Like, oh, I've got sweaty palms, and I'm like maybe feeling like a lot of like heaviness around the skin. Maybe I'm feeling anxious, you know, tune into the emotions. Maybe I'm feeling kind of, you know, like I'm not aware of my breath. So it's starting to tune into the breath.
Hmm.
And, you know, just coming back into the moment. Um, you know, I think that's like, so, you know, when you're in that moment of confrontation of, you know, being called out, could be a moment where that's happening. And just like tuning back into the body and what am I feeling, what's actually happening inside, can then tune you back in to like just that sense of true self.
Hmm.
And, you know, like, what's the moment actually asking me for right now?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking of so many times over the past what, 6, 7, 8 months, where I have been tempted to react to my parents. And I'm sure people listening can relate because, heck, we're in isolation. It's a pandemic. And after a while, things do get on your nerves. And there have been times where I've just reacted. And instead of, like you said, um, tuning into my body and actually feeling what there is to feel. And it's funny, but I've found that the times when I have broken down and cried and just been sad and let myself feel that sadness or that anger, that rage, whatever it might be, that, as sucky as it is to feel in the moment, that is when my parents and I, we get more connected. And it's like that's what I was trying to avoid, but I think that's the beauty of life, is that pain, that suffering, it also draws us closer. I don't know if that's where you were going with that, Spencer, but that's where I
Yeah.
took it.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. Yeah, and I think that that's exactly the point, is that like we call these things like, you know, we have these mental models of like, oh, this feeling is good or this feeling is bad, or if I do this, you know, we already think we know what's going to happen, but we don't actually. And you know, like, and that's like every single time when I follow this and I go into the body and I allow myself to be in the moment and feel like these are the things that happen. It's that because because in the moment, intuition, it is creative, and creative is something that you can't predict. You can't know what's going to happen. And you know, a good friend of mine, Henry, who people listening to this podcast, if they're from Seattle, might know his murals, you know, like all of the colorful magical creatures. It's like, I remember thinking I was so smart when I first met him, and I was like, oh, like like what did you think when you were painting that? And he was like, nothing. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah, I wasn't thinking anything. I was just like feeling what wanted to come through the paintbrush. And I was like, wait, what? Because I like thought it meant all of this stuff. And he was like, that's cool that you think that. Like, glad it speaks to you. It's like, oh. You know,
Wow.
those moments of, you know, like being so in the moment with people like your parents, it's like that's what actually moves your life forward. You know, that's what actually moves your relationship forward, is being with people and like being outside of planning, being outside of what you think, and
Mm.
just like allowing yourself to be real and to flow and be that river, and to trust yourself and trust your life and trust, like, you know, the people around you, you know. And I say parents because, like, you know, it sounds like you have a good relationship with your parents, you know, and
Yeah.
nuance intuition of like, you know, having the right people around you. But yeah, I just think that, you know, it's like those moments that are, you know, when you just like be with your feelings and what's there, it's like it's so powerful. That's exactly it.
Yeah. So powerful. And also I want to encourage those who are listening too, that emotions are powerful. And guess what? Yeah, you get to feel it, but you also don't have to walk this journey alone. Like Spencer is here, I am here. We we're guides. We're here to hold your hand and walk alongside you in this journey, whatever that might look like. I'd love for you, Spencer, to share a little bit more about what you offer and ways that people can connect with you, because I'm sure after a deep conversation like this, I mean, if they want some of your magic, I'd love for you to share how people can find you, and I'll also include it in the show notes. But
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I'm an intuitive healer and coach, and I help people to live creatively and get unstuck in life, work, and business. And what I offer is intuitive bodywork. I offer human design, intuitive sessions, and reconnecting to spirit through intuitive coaching. And people can get in touch with me on Instagram at my Instagram, Creative Living and Friends, and I really welcome people to just send me a message if they want to talk to me. And I think the last thing I just want to say about that is the people that I really like to work with is people that are creative energy intuitives on journeys of career, self-discovery, and like really embracing what it is to be a like magical healer type person. And for people that want to tap into those gifts that they have and just get to know a little bit more about themselves or find a way to weave their true self into their career, that I really love helping people to navigate that and find the unique path that works for them.
Mm, beautiful. Yes, so good. And I know I kind of just weaved that into there. We have about 5-10 minutes. As we're wrapping up, Spencer, were there maybe things that I didn't ask that you would have liked me to ask? Because now's your time, and here's the space for you to just share whatever there is to share.
I think the thing that I just want to say, and thanks for the space. Thanks for having me here. And I think the thing that I just want to say right now is that, um, we all have this intuitiveness in us, and we all have a deep well of intuitive gift that it's if that's just not something that I see being like pulled upon in educational settings very much. And I really just want to encourage people that if they feel like they might have some intuitive gifts and they might have had some unusual experiences, or just the question has come up of like, what was that? That follow that thread, and let that be the thing that pulls you on a path of living creatively, rather than just being on whatever trajectory you think that you have to be on in order for things to work out.
Mm, permission to follow your intuition. Not that you needed the permission, but if you needed a sign, this is it.
That's right. And honestly, I do think that like we all need permission to follow our intuition. And like you said, we don't walk this path alone. And I think that that's one of the most beautiful things that we can do for each other as friends is like, when we, to be the ones that give each other space and grace to have the room to be a little bit more intuitive and be a little bit more creative and be a little bit more in our hearts, because it's like so easy to get wrapped up in like, oh, we got to do this and we got to go and we got to like move along and like do things a certain way. And we all need each other to keep that door of possibility open to something that, like, if we both are willing to walk through that together, we can very quickly end up in a very magical place.
Oh my gosh, yes, this is so perfect because there's literally a door behind you. And so when you said keep that door of possibility open, I'm like, yes. And I just wanted to like dive into the screen, like, let's go. Those of you who are listening to the podcast, you can't see the door, but I swear there's a door.
There's always a door.
A legit door, and it's always open. No, but that's smooth. That's a smooth transition. When we say there's a door of possibility and it's open, we mean it. Like reach out to Spencer, reach out to me. You know how to contact me. I love hearing from you. And, it could be as simple as the impact of this podcast. Maybe a big takeaway that you had from this. Also, I could be profound, like, the way that intuition has worked in your life. Regardless of what it is, we'd love to hear from you. Maybe it's just that you love squirrels too. And that's totally cool. But yeah, I love hearing from the listeners, and heck, that's what life is all about, relationships. So
Marissa, I think that we have an obligation, in the best of ways, to the people who've been listening to this podcast to pull the squirrel thread a little bit, because we've just sort of put that out there. And at this point in the conversation, it's like, what even is this about? And of course, as I'm looking out, I'm like, there's like this squirrel that just showed up on the tree outside my window. And I'm like, okay, there's the sign. This is the moment of the squirrel.
The moment of truth.
If we have space for it.
Okay, but wait, are you going to share about squirrels or?
Oh, I wanted you to ask me about it because you were like, is there anything else you want me to ask you about? And I'm like, no, this is what I want you to ask me.
Oh. Okay, so you just want me to like, is there a certain question that you want me to ask? Like, I need it to be spoon fed, or do you want me to just in general ask about squirrels?
I want you to, in general, ask about squirrels.
All right, Spencer. So I get it. Your name starts with an S, and so does squirrels. But do tell, what else is like, why? Why this love for squirrels? Where did that start?
Well, I will answer this as I've always answered the direct questions about squirrels, and I totally set you up for this. Is that I'm not going to answer that question exactly, but I'm going to say that people have this like impression of squirrels, like, it could be a lot of things. It could be they're cute. It could be that they destroy your backyard furniture. It could be that they're all about the nuts. But whatever you think about squirrels, they are, I like to think that squirrels are here for a greater purpose, and that human beings were like so like wrapped up in our technologies and all these things, but then you like look out the window and you're like, wait, what's going on there? It's a squirrel. And and I think that like squirrels are the great messengers of our time, because we're like so wrapped up in all the things that we're doing, and we're so just like da 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 da, and the squirrel is like out there just like whatever, man, like like it's like its mind is like also like us. Like you see squirrels, they're like, have you ever let me ask you this, have you ever watched a video of a squirrel in slow motion?
Oh, no.
Okay, if you watch a video of a squirrel in slow motion, they actually look totally normal. Like they look like they're doing everything at the speed that we are used to doing things at. So when you watch a squirrel and they're like, they're doing all this stuff really fast. Like if you watch them in like slow-mo speed, they actually look normal. So yeah. So I think that, I'm not going to tell anybody like what the squirrel means or like whatever, but start watching the squirrels in your life and you might be surprised where they lead you.
Ooh, ooh, what a good note to end on. All right. No, seriously, thank you for that. Thank you for that last nugget of wisdom. And thank you so much, Spencer, for joining me and sharing your heart with a wider audience.
Thanks so much for having me, Marissa. This was a fun and winding little meander through all kinds of fun stuff, and it was just such a delight. I love the space that you create, and it just feels so good to be here and to share my heart with you.
And if you made it this far, thank you. We love you. Bye.